Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Thirsty Thursday edition of The Rundown. I will be your host today, Craig DeLuz, coming at you from the West Coast, the left coast, behind the Iron Curtain, otherwise known as the Sierras, in the state known in free America as California. But as we all know, I do not do this program by myself.
No, I tend to stick around and help out every once in a while. I'm the co-host from the East Coast. That's the coast with the most from the co-host with the most. I'm Mike Piwowarski here on The Rundown, where we bring you two-way views of conservative news. Craig, it's great to be back.
It is always fun to be with you. So, I always tell folks, the number one reason we do this program is, one, we both like to talk politics, but it gives us an opportunity to chop it up every single day.
Do you ever get the feeling, though, sometimes it feels like we're doing the same thing over and over?
Over and over again. Sometimes it does feel like that, but that was yesterday, because yesterday was actually Groundhog's Day.
Yes. We had a little fun yesterday on Groundhog Day, also. So I figure I'll let you explain to the peoples what happened.
All right. So before we went on yesterday, Mike came up. He said, "Dude, I have this great idea for the program," and I'm like, "Okay." So I have to wait all day to find out, what his idea is. And so his idea was, here's what we're gonna do: we're gonna start the beginning of the show, and we're gonna do the beginning of the show. We're gonna talk about Groundhog Day. And then when we get to the end of the show, we're going to do the exact beginning of the show all over again, talking about Groundhog Day. And it was kind of funny because I was surprised at how much of the conversation we actually repeated almost verbatim.
Yeah, we about 90% nailed it. And I don't think we planned it like that. We're just going to do the same story over again, but we did almost, like you said, line for line. To the point where I got several messages like, "Did you guys record the show and then just re-loop it?" And I'm like, "No, that was one take or one regular show all the way through, and we just happened to nail it. That's all."
Well, now, have you ever listened to a show, whether it's on podcast or even listened to it live, and all of a sudden felt like, wait a minute, I've heard this interview before. I've heard this segment before. Have you ever done that?
Well, yeah, but that's because we were there doing the interview. It was our interview.
No, I mean someone else. I mean, like, listen to another show.
Oh, someone else. Okay.
Listen to someone else's show. But I'm like, but that's what I think a lot of people thought it was. And it's like,
right.
Yeah, no, that was all a plan. We duped y'all. Anyway.
Yep. I heard there was a lot of, after the show was over, going back and rewinding it and looking at it.
It's okay. Get our play numbers up.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, anyway, that was a lot of fun though. That was actually a lot of fun.
Yeah. And hey, listen, all that groundhog trivia out of New Jersey, all true. By the way.
All true. Every last bit of it was true.
Yep. All true.
And that's what makes it fun, when you can actually make fun of the truth, which, by the way, on Facebook and YouTube can get you banned.
Right. Yeah. Hey, the one question I did get, now I'm curious to ask you, because we talked about how Groundhog Day could be a majority an East Coast thing as opposed to a West Coast thing.
Right.
I also made mention, which was in the story, of a Shakespearean quote or reference that said to shuffle off the mortal coil.
Yes.
Now, have you ever heard the term shuffle off to Buffalo?
I've never heard the term shuffle off to Buffalo.
Okay. All right. See, now I grew up with it. Well, listen, they shuffle off to Buffalo. That means they
die.
They'd rather die than go to Buffalo.
Than go to Buffalo.
Well, listen, I'm from New York City, right? So Buffalo's like, what am I going to go to Buffalo for? It's way out there, and it snows all the time.
Unless you want to watch a good football team.
Right. Yeah. So shuffle off to Buffalo. Yeah. Well, I know one year they died 4 times in a row.
Right. Which by the way, you do realize that the Buffalo Bills are the only football team in the state of New York.
They are. They are the only team that plays in the state of New York. It's true. That's good bar trivia right there. So shuffle off to Buffalo means die, and I didn't realize that. I was curious. That's why I wanted to see if you'd heard that at all on the West Coast.
No, I've heard of the mortal coil. I have heard that off before. Right. That before, but that was all high school Shakespeare, preparing for the SATs and stuff.
And listen, before you start writing the mean letters, I know there was a song in the 30s called "Shuffle Off to Buffalo," but that's from the saying "Shuffle Off to Buffalo." So
yeah. Just so y'all know.
Yeah. Well, there you go.
All right, man. Hey, let's get into today's stories because, this first one just, I think, ushers in a big fat I told you so. This is information and data that I think many of us knew in the summer of 2020. It just seemed empirically by the data that, no, this was working. And this has to do with lockdowns. Now, we all know that a lot of the country, in fact, a huge chunk of the country, when COVID first hit in 2020, that March, a lot of the country shut down. And a lot of country shut down because they talked about the 2 weeks to flatten the curve. And the truth was, we didn't really know what we didn't know, right? But one of the things that we started to know as things went on was that the shutdown was not effective. It was not going to make a difference in whether or not COVID was going to spread or not. And now, in fact, we are finding out from a study from Johns Hopkins, that the lockdowns didn't help. Now, Johns Hopkins University is not a conservative. It's not a conservative institution. In fact, that's where institution like the Johns Hopkins gun, I think it's what they call the gun violence, not research, but they study a bunch of different things that are relating to firearms. It's literally a left-wing university. And so for them to come out with a study that shows that it reduced the death rate by 0.2%, 0.2%, and then to note that lockdowns should be rejected out of hand as a policy solution to the pandemic or to future outbreaks of COVID, once again, Mike, for us is absolutely nothing new, especially for you there in Florida, because you guys know.
Yeah, we know it doesn't work, which is why we didn't do it. We had the 2 week slowdown, you could call it. Essential workers still went to work, people still went to work, and they pretty much thumbed our nose at it because, as the governor said, we're not going to burn down the house to kill the spider. I believe was his quote back then. So, it doesn't work, and we knew we were being lied to. We know we've been lied to all along. And listen, you only have to look as far as your liberal elite to see that the policies don't work, and it was all about control, right? We saw it again this week, right? With your governor and your couple of your mayors out there, the Los Angeles, San Francisco mayors out in California. We know it's about control. That's all it is. It didn't do anything to lock it down. Craig, I bet that 0.2% margin rate could probably be washed away inside old folks' homes in New York State.
Oh, quite possibly, because one of the things, and the guy that's being interviewed in this story right here on Fox News, one of the things that he notes, and this is I think this is Larry Hogan, but one of the things that they noted in this particular thing was, number one, we knew from the very beginning that the people that were most affected were people who were over the age of 65, and the people who were suffering from comorbidities, the primary which, the most common of which, was obesity, right? So we knew early on that, okay, if you protect the elderly, right? You don't, I don't know, send people who've been infected with COVID to nursing homes, for example. Because a huge percentage of the people who died were once again, senior citizens in nursing homes, right?
Yep.
So let's not do that, all right? Let's not put people at risk who have things like heart issues, who have lung issues, who have autoimmune issues, because we knew early on this was a disease that affects the autoimmune system, that would affect one's ability to be able to breathe, the respiratory system. And if we didn't do those things, if we protected those people, we could pretty much go on about our daily lives, right? And we knew early on that summer, and I know this because I talked about this extensively as a school board member with other school boards, with city and state policymakers. I was like, look, the data is already showing that, kids can be in school. These schools aren't a vector. They're not a place where people are getting infected. And yet we continue to ignore the data. And really, all this Johns Hopkins study does is confirm what we already knew over a year and a half ago.
Craig, what platforms are we still on here? I want to see because I'm about to go on a rant. I want to see which ones we're going to get thrown off of.
Well, okay, so we are still on YouTube. We're just not on the Rundown YouTube channel. So
okay.
A number of our sponsors have us on there. So let's not let's not lose those. Let's not put their channels in jeopardy. How about that?
You recall the State of the Union address with President Trump, where he
Yes.
got up and he listed the most recognizable, I think, memorable feature from that was when Rush Limbaugh was in the gallery there. Just to give you the kind of reference, America was at the top. I mean, our foreign policies were wonderful. We were raking in dough. Our tax rates were low. It was a great time to be an American. And at that right there at that State of the Union address, the Democrats knew they had lost. They'd had to come up with an earth-shattering, life-changing events in order to get Donald Trump out of office. So guess what happened? And you saw this when it first happened, when the COVID first got announced around the world. Remember, the Democrats were first opposed to it because President Trump said he was going to lock the borders down, and then they said, you can't do that. That's racist. That's xenophobic. You can't do that. Well, then they thought about it for a couple of days and had about a week to think about it and thought, well, here's what we'll do. We'll shut down the country. If we shut down the country, then we could drive the economy down. And then once the economy goes down, they're going to lose faith in the presidency. And that's exactly what happened. This is all by design. This is nothing more than an H1 flu virus, than a bird flu, than a swine flu, than anything else. A little more deadly, a little more dangerous than a normal flu, but with education and a little prevention would have been taken care of. Instead, we've had this charade going on for 2 years that we know this is political control. And now we have John Hopkins, who, by the way, was in on it at the time, said, yeah, we should lock everything down. Now, 2 years later, is saying, no, did we say that? We didn't mean that. We didn't mean that because, look, clearly the results prove that we were idiots then, and everybody else has been right all along now, just like you and I have been preaching, Craig, since this started.
Well, exactly. And, the thing that gets me is once again, COVID is real. It is as was stated, it is more dangerous. Mostly it's more dangerous because it was much more highly infective than many other of the previous COVIDs that were out there.
Of the flus,
but
yes.
The flus that were out there. But once again, we knew early on, in particular from data that we got from other places, we knew early on that it affected specific segments of society mostly, and that other segments of society were largely, I don't want to say left untouched, but were overwhelmingly safe. And yet we continued to treat everybody as if everyone in every situation was at the same level of risk for both infection and for mortality. And that just was not true. And all this study from Johns Hopkins is doing is confirming what we knew a year and a half ago. And the other thing that was noted in this particular study was just how it had such negative effects on other health issues like suicide, like cancer, like death from like we saw the greatest number of fentanyl deaths ever in society. Now, I'm not saying that it wasn't because more fentanyl was coming in, but drug use increased because of depression and a bunch of other things. And all of this is tied to not COVID. And that's the thing I want people to understand. The reason most of these problems were not tied to COVID, but it was liberal Democratic responses, their policy responses to COVID that caused all of these problems. And they're going to have to own that in this upcoming election. And as we start talking policy, they're going to have to own that stuff. And it's up to us to make sure that they do. And by the way, that includes Facebook, that includes YouTube, that includes Twitter. You guys all were complicit in the peddling of the false information that led to all of these problems relating to these shutdowns.
Listen, the misinformation, the disinformation, they continue, Craig, again, because this is about control. We've seen this week, the drug companies have put in for an emergency authorization order to get vaccinations and boosters to children under 5.
Right.
Children under 5. Right. And Craig, what was the story last week about vaccinations?
Oh, well, first of all, we found out the vaccinations don't work.
They don't work, but we're still going to push them on kids under 5.
Exactly. No, we're not just going to push them. We're going to do an emergency. We're going to create an emergency thing. I'm like, what are you people thinking? Dude, there was a liberal, a left on CNN. CNN's own physician folks were like, Yeah, I don't know. It doesn't make sense if you're going to push a vaccine that you don't know if it's
Right.
safe,
Yeah.
and you don't know if it's effective. I mean, there's no data showing that it's effective at all. She was saying
Right.
for kids, she's like, I mean, once again, this is CNN saying that she wouldn't recommend her. She didn't feel good about doing it to her own kids.
Right. Yeah. It's the vaccine for 3 flus ago.
Right.
Imagine that. Imagine if they came to you and say, "Listen, we want to give you the flu vaccine, but it's from the one 3 years ago."
Exactly. Exactly. I mean,
Well,
I'm going to give you the
but don't we
answers
have
to
a
the test
don't
from
don't
three
we have a
years
new
ago.
flu now? Yeah, don't we have a new flu now? Well, yeah, we do, but
Right.
we're not sure this one's not
Mm-hmm.
effective against that one. What?
Well,
That's your scientific theory? You're not sure it's not effective against the new one? How
right.
about, I don't know, you study that? You're a freaking scientist.
Right. Especially once again amongst a group that now this is based on the data. Grand total of about 800, over a little over 800 people have under the age of 19 have died from COVID. And of those 800, only a couple of dozen maybe did not have pre-existing comorbidities.
Right.
Um,
Right.
yeah, no, that's more kids that age have drowned in the United States, and
Yeah.
yet we're not banning swimming pools.
Right.
Way more have died in car accidents, yet we're not banning vehicles. Yeah, no, I'm sorry. No. I'm done with this. I'm done with your studies. I'm done with you guys trying to tell us what to do, because, well, you guys are what you are. I'm not very happy.
Well, you and I have been done for, 97 of the 99 weeks of the 2 week shutdown.
Right.
It's the rest of the country that's looking around going right now and going, what do you mean gas is up another 40 cents this weekend?
Right.
What do you mean it's not inflation? What do you mean it's not hard economic times? Why
Right.
are you, I mean, Craig, it's literally the you're getting peed on and they're telling you it's not raining, or they're telling you it's
Well,
raining.
and the worst part is how about in the very beginning, how about they just admit they were wrong? Right?
No, they can't.
Well, now
And
they
not even
can't. Now
50
they've
years
already
from now can
committed
they
to this
admit that.
policy decision. So, yeah, they can't admit that they were wrong.
Correct.
Right. Anyway, moving right along, talking about another issue area where we know that the left has been pushing, and this is probably, it's got to be at least it's got to be one of the biggest stories that's out there. And this has to do with, it has to do with, you guys know it's Black History Month, and many schools are pushing now the Black Lives Matter week of action in their schools. Now, not all schools are doing this, but many schools are doing this. And what they're going to be pushing is this. How do we call it? During their week of action, they want to push this disruption of what the Western nuclear family. Now, their goal is, and keep in mind, this is a direct goal of communism and socialism. Their belief is, or what they're saying is, they want to push the idea of raising children in the concept of the family, right? I mean, not the family, I'm sorry, the village. They want to promote the village as a way in which to raise kids. And once again, disrupt the idea of a traditional nuclear family. Now, the oddest thing to me, Mike, about this is that if you talk to if you talk to experts who point to and understand the challenges affecting, in particular, the Black community, the number one issue impacting the Black community, it's not racism, it's not economic justice. You know what it is? It is the breakdown of the nuclear family. 70% of Black children, of African-American children, are growing up in a household with a single parent, which increases the likelihood that they're going to wind up in poverty. I mean, by every statistic, if you grow up in a single parent household, you are more likely to do bad than good. And that's just, I mean, if for no other reason, Mike, then, two heads are better than one.
Yes, absolutely right. And Craig, as I sit here listening to this story or watching you educate us on this story, I feel like, and I don't remember the guy's name, the guy who looked to the left side of the room and saw peanut butter, and then he looked to the right side of the room and he saw chocolate, and in his brain he went, wait a second, how come nobody's put these two together yet, right?
Right.
How come nobody's put these two together yet? So listening to your side of the story, there's another story that came out right before we went on air, and it might have even been a story we did tomorrow, but I'm going to introduce it today.
Mm-hmm.
Historical Black colleges and universities have been receiving a number of bomb threats over the past 2 or 3 days, to where they've been closed down, and it's been rampant throughout Black colleges and universities across the country. Now, put that back up, Craig, with the last slide you just had up there. Let's see here. I'm just waiting for the slide.
There you go.
And I know we talked about, you just focused on the disruption of the nuclear family there, which is an excellent point. But looking at the top of this is schools across America implement BLM week. All right, now Craig, who's introducing schools across America implement BLM week? Well, it's either it's I know what it most likely is. It's most likely liberal whiteys that want to get in there and take control, just like they want to do with critical race theory and everything else in schools, right? So it's another way to take control of what's being taught in schools. Well, now let's add to that the chocolate to go with the peanut butter, right? To make the match made. You have historically black schools and colleges receiving bomb threats and terrorist threats. That's the resistance to this. There you go. That's the resistance. That's the people in schools that don't want any part to do with this, saying, listen, if you're going to force BLM down on us, we're going to force your black schools to shut down just as well.
Well,
I think that's the connection in the story.
I also believe that there's another plausible thing, and that is that literally it is a PR stunt that is being done. Because here's the thing, there's a great book out there. I forget what it's called, but it talks about hate crime hoaxes, right?
Yeah.
And the overwhelming majority of hate crime hoaxes, first of all, a huge percentage of hate crimes, or quote unquote hate crimes, are in fact hoaxes, like somewhere upwards of 15 to 20%. And actually at institutions of higher learning, at like colleges and universities, up to 50% of those are in fact hoaxes. And I firmly believe that these could be bomb threats that are being called in by leftist communist students who are trying to perpetuate the idea of race hate in America by calling in these bomb threats. There is a good chance that these are in fact hoaxes. I'm not saying they are, but I'm saying unless you find some evidence, and I think if you keep investigating, there's a good chance that they will find evidence, at least according to the odds, 50-50, that these are in fact hoaxes.
You know what? That's a good point. Now you may have taken my chocolate and peanut butter theory and just turned it into chocolate and sauerkraut, but I think I think they're definitely related. Yeah, so I think you're right.
Well, one is as likely as the other, except that you know, Mike, I would say that at least those on the right have been a lot more hesitant to both instigate violence and or threaten direct threat of physical violence than has the left. Now, that propensity has changed. It's increased on the right. And I say it's increased because it's been demonstrated in academia, in the media, and in government that violence by the left is tolerated, in particular when it's violence against the right. And many of the people on the right have just decided, you know what? Well, if you're going to allow them to attack us and physically harm us, then we're going to retaliate and do the same. And if you're going to allow them to do it, instigate it, then we will, in some cases, attack them preemptively. I'm not approving of that. I'm just explaining it, and I understand why it's happening. Looks like Mikey is a bit speechless. So we're gonna go ahead and move on to the next story. All right, so next on the list of stories, we've got, speaking of revolt and revolution, because, you know, that's what BLM and Black Lives Matter is really all about. It's about communist revolution and overthrowing the system. Well, we've actually seen, there's actually been a little bit of overthrowing of the system here in the state of California from a number of students. Now, these students who are in Southern California, they decided that they went to class one day and they decided they refused to wear masks. You guys remember the story that we talked about yesterday and the day before about Governor Gavin Newsom, who decided he was going to show up to a football game, the NFC Championship game, and not wear a mask. Right? Him and a number of other politicians, including the mayor of San Francisco, the mayor of Oakland, Magic Johnson, all of these folks, none of them were wearing masks. So some students in San Diego, California decided that we're not going to wear masks because if the governor doesn't have to, if he's supposed to be leading by example, well, then we're going to follow his example. And Mike, these guys wound up getting suspended or removed from school because, well, they decided to follow the governor's lead.
Yeah, it happened down in Los Angeles as well, and in L.A. County down there where Garcetti was seen not wearing the mask. So yeah, it's happened a couple places in California, and every one of them has cited, hey, I mean, if the governor's not wearing it, clearly he's not wearing it at a mega sporting event with our mayors at these mega sporting events, then it clearly must be okay. The threat must be over. There's no difference in him going to a sporting event than there is me going to school. Except, by the way, I'm going to see the same people every day for the next year. He's just finding random large crowd after random large crowd every Sunday. So it must be okay. So we're going to follow the role of our governor here, or the play of our governor, and just do as he does.
Exactly. By the way, I owe you an apology. It wasn't in San Diego. It was reported by NBC7 in San Diego. So it wasn't in San Diego that it happened, but you were right. It was in Los Angeles. And that's ultimately, keep in mind, this is not the first time that this governor has done this. Now, we've known that he's put regulations in place. He's put down these mandates on the people, and then he's violated those mandates. And then he turned around and lied about it. At least these students didn't lie.
Yeah.
Right? This guy's supposed to be a leader, and he just flat out lied. Oh yeah, well no, I wore my mask most of the time because Then all of a sudden we see, yeah, no, you didn't have your mask on.
It's not even the first time he's been caught this week, Craig.
Right.
And again, it's the childish attitude of him and his class of lie, deny, make counter accusations. It's the schoolyard attitude. Oh no, right. I didn't do it. It wasn't me. It was him. He did it. He did it. It was over there. It's lie, deny, make counter accusations.
And the worst part is that this is a guy who lied before, survived a recall, and now is running for re-election and will likely win despite being a lying liar.
Well, when you get 6 million extra free votes from illegal aliens, you're always going to win because you keep handing them checks. Here you go. Thank you for your vote. Here you go. Here's some more money. Thank you.
But you got to figure even they got to look and be like, dude, he's lying.
Hey, listen, Craig,
look, I know we're not supposed to vote, but if we're going to go ahead and vote, we can't vote for that guy. He's a liar.
Right. But as long as that guy keeps handing me $2,500 in checks a month, you know what? It's not my country. I'll vote for you. I mean, that's like you and I breaking into Mexico, and they don't put us in jail. They just give us money. Here you go.
Yeah,
here you go.
That doesn't happen in Mexico. For those of you, I've never been in jail in Mexico, but I'm pretty much assuming that I've never broken into Mexico, but I'm pretty much assuming that doesn't happen in Mexico.
Here's what I want you to, Craig. I want you to imagine if you go to Mexico, right, and they say, "Do you have your papers?" And you say no, and they say, well, we're sending you to Puerto Vallarta, and we're going to give you a $5,000 a month bar tab, and we want you just to stay there. Oh, and by the way, we got elections coming up if you want to vote in them. Okay,
I would vote for the guys who let me.
Yeah, okay. Yes, right. That's what's happening.
Point made. All right, moving right along, Mikey. This next one was you introduced the story, so I figured you would like to lead the folks in on it.
I have no idea what this story is.
This is the McCluskey story.
Oh, okay. It didn't say McCluskey's. I was a little confused. So you guys are familiar with the McCluskeys? In fact, we're actually working our best to try and get one of them on here. So that may or may not happen. Don't just cross your fingers, but don't bet the farm on it. Let's say that. There's a new law that's been proposed in the state of Missouri, and it was not by the McCluskeys, because remember, they are not in political office there. They just have to be prominent attorneys. Now, Mr. McCluskey is running for senator from the great state of Missouri, so we'll see how that goes. But again, he wouldn't be making state law. He'd be at the federal level. However, because he's been involved in a Second Amendment firearms-related incident over the past 2 years, he's become the poster boy evidently for these. So here's what the law, Craig, says, and it's a presumption issue, all right, that if a firearm is used in self-defense, that they want the law to read that it is presumed that it was done so lawfully unless the state can prove otherwise. So what they've done is they want to switch the burden from the victim to the state in order to prosecute a crime. Now, Craig, in any crime out there, it's the burden of the state to prove that you violated the law. You don't have to go out and prove you didn't do it, Craig. The state has to prove you did do it. Does that make sense?
Oh, makes total sense. Makes total sense.
Okay. So the way the law currently is there is if you claim self-defense, you have to prove self-defense rather than the state proving it was a crime and not self-defense.
Right.
What they want to do is to switch that portion of the law to the burden goes to the state, just like every other criminal allegation made against an individual.
Right.
They want this portion of that law to also be that the burden goes to the state. The state must be the one to prove it was not self-defense rather than you prove it was self-defense.
Well, what's funny about this is, and I've had a chance to study, I mean, the work that in particular that I did with the Farmers Policy Coalition, spent a lot of time reading up on similar laws relating to stand your ground. And,
Yes.
Mike, one of the interesting things about this is that you have the left who wants to say, well, this is just going to give people an opportunity to murder people of color. And that's what they keep pointing to. But when you look at it, the greatest percentage of people that benefit from laws protecting defendants in cases like these are people of color, right? There are people who, because once again, we know this. We know that people tend to murder people who are like them. It's not unique to black people. It's Latinos, it's whites, it's Asians. Across the board, the greater percentage of murders of people of a particular race are people within that race. Well, that also means that when people proclaim self-defense, that also tends to be, because once again, we're looking at the percentage of people who in that particular who are involved in those incidents. The thing that gets me is that the defendants who they claim are going, or the people who they're claiming are the victims, are the same exact people who are going to benefit as defendants in these particular cases. And I thought we had a legal system that was innocent until proven guilty. And all you're doing here with this particular law is saying, look, if it wasn't self-defense, you got to prove it. It's just making prosecutors, I don't know, do their job.
Yeah, no, you're exactly right. You're exactly right. And now Florida's had this. We used to have it, we lost it, and now it's back. Within the past 2-3 years, again, the burden is back on the state to prove that it was not self-defense if they're claiming a crime was committed. And in the same cries we heard before, every time, Craig, the same cries we hear in this article, same cries we hear everywhere else. Anytime that we talk about repealing gun control, this is the argument. Oh, there's going to be blood in the streets. It's going to be the Wild West. It's going to be mayhem. It's going to be murder. Minorities are going to die. And guess what happens every time? None of that. None of their allegations have ever come true. We've never had shooting in the streets. We've never had Old West style stuff. None of it ever happens. What we see right away and immediately is safer communities, less violent crime.
Exactly. And people, by the way, not just people being safer, but people feeling safer.
Yes.
Right.
Absolutely
Well,
right.
let me clarify. There is one group that does not feel safer. And
The
those
Mennonites.
are criminals.
Oh, criminals. Okay.
Those are criminals.
That's it.
They don't feel safer. And by the way, they shouldn't.
No, they should not. They should not. Yeah.
Just saying. All right. Hey, time to move on to our parting shot. Now, seeing as how, yesterday was Groundhog Day, Mike came across this commercial. I don't know how we missed this commercial 2 years. I never saw this commercial. But
Listen,
Mike came across the extended version with the behind the scenes version. I'm not going to play that version of the commercial, but because it's Groundhog Day, or the day after Groundhog Day, I felt like we should play this.
I want to say, listen, I'm huge with Groundhog Day. I'm huge with this movie. Obviously, I think we pulled off a great groundhog stunt yesterday with everyone. And I've got to throw props out where props are meant to go. This was sent to me by my buddy Chuck, an Army buddy from Afghanistan. So I want to make sure he gets credit for sending that to me.
Chuck, you are the man. Just so you know, you made my day the day after Groundhog Day. All right, let's check it out.
Okay, campers, rise and shine. It's Groundhog Day. And don't forget your booties, because it's cold out there today.
Phil? Hey, Phil!
No, not you.
It's me, Ned Ryerson!
Okay, little fella, good job. That's different. Good job.
Hey!
Farmer Bob.
Have we met? You believe this guy?
About 100 times. You're gonna freeze to death. Who cares? See you tomorrow.
Mountain we can't climb in four-wheel drive.
I don't know where we parked. I was following you.
He's got the groundhog! Phil!
Hands at 10 and 2. You know, it's funny. I have hair, but you have fur.
Oh, sir, no animals.
Oh. 2 for dinner.
Follow me.
Hello!
Safety first.
Yeah. He's got the groundhog! That was Phil Connors! Bing! Hello!
It's not personal. It's just a game. Not a bad day, huh?
Oh, it's not personal. It's just a game.
It's not personal. It's just a game. It's whack-a-mole, not whack-a-gopher. Come on.
There you go. There you go. There you go. I have no idea where we parked. I was just following. I was following you.
Yeah. Mind, I'm wearing you in a vest, but it's all right. Listen, that was great. Listen, you had Brian Doyle Murray, who was in there playing the mayor. That was that's Bill Murray's older brother. I think everybody knows that by now.
Yeah.
Stephen Tobolowsky, who plays Ned Ryerson. And Stephen's been in, I think the last count was like 300 TV shows or movies. That guy's he's known everywhere.
Yes.
So it was great to see that little bit of cast back together, and that was hilarious. Hilarious.
Beyond hilarious. That literally that made my day. All right, hey, speaking of making our day, shout out to the sponsors.
Hello to our good friends. Visited them yesterday, by the way. Saw them. Well, I didn't see all of them. I saw the people at Gorilla Machining, and then at Grid Defense. I did not get to see, but I'm sure you talked to them yesterday, Craig, our good friends at the California Republican Assembly. Yes,
definitely talked to the folks over at the California Republican Assembly. By the way, state convention is coming up. It's coming up the weekend of March 18th. That's right. It's coming up the weekend of March 18th. It's going to be taking place at Knott's Berry Farm there in Southern California. Folks, this is going to be the political event of the year. I'm telling you, it is a group that has grown, literally has doubled in size in the last year. What that means is that there are a bunch of conservatives who are interested in making changes here in the state of California. If you guys are in Southern California, or if you're in California and you want to make it down, you got to make sure to be there. Get the details. Go to the website. It's in the link to the description of this video. Check it out. It's definitely going to be a fun event. And if you're not in California, the Republican Assembly is in your state. So you can find the organization, go to the National Republican Assembly and check them out. Once again, Ronald Reagan referred to them as the conscience of the Republican Party. I always like to say they're the Republican wing of the Republican Party, at least here in California.
Very nice. I like it.
All right, folks. Hey, by the way, make sure you like, share, subscribe. Wherever you're watching this, make sure you like it. Make sure you share it. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you all, by the way, like our actual Facebook page. I realize we're not on YouTube right now, but you can actually like our actual Facebook page and check us out. Encourage your friends to do the same. With that, we're going to call it a day, and we will see you, mañana on Feedback Friday. Talk to you later.
Yeah. What he said.